Hello everybody, I'm Raphael Perry and it's time for some more Bloodsword. I really wanted to record this last night, but I was just far too exhausted and yeah, it didn't quite happen. So we're picking up again at section 78, and if you'll remember the last episode, and by episode I mean the last numbered episode in this playlist, not the side episode, with the extended example of why the Ice Lacken was a really tough encounter, we defeated the Ice Lacken by not fighting it and by using the White Orb of Conflagration, which is now no longer on Ariadne's equipment list. We finished here on section 78 and I did not make a healing roll because the party's in relatively good shape, and I think I'm going to leave it till the next time. So let's recap. You murmur the word of power that energizes the orb. It grows hot immediately, forcing you to drop it at your feet to avoid a serious burn. It sizzles as it hits the ice, but even the Arctic cold cannot cool its fire. White flames envelop it as it grows to incandescent heat, throwing up a billowing cloud of steam from the pack ice. For a few moments, wrapped in your thick clothes, you experience a wave of sweltering, near-tropical heat. The huge red eye under you blinks uncomprehendingly as the orb sinks through the melting ice towards it. An inhuman scream of agony splits the air, the bubbling screech of the blinded monster. The tentacles thrash madly like corn in a storm. You make a dash for the coast as the ice quakes and cracks beneath you. Glancing back, you see that the monster has broken through the ice and pulled its gigantic body half out of the water, squirming blindly in unendurable pain. You have no pity to spare for a creature such as that, but at least you do not bother to gloat over its throes. Turning your back on it, you walk to the shore. The shoreline of Wyrd is ringed by high, splintered cliffs above a strand of gelid mud and shingle. You look to the north. Across this benighted land you must travel to the Palace of Eternal Dusk, where the Warlock King dwells. Doubtless he will prove a mighty foe, but you must defeat him in order to acquire the bloodsword hilt. To start the session, Brother Kern's going to be making a 2-point healing roll. And he loses those 2 points of endurance, which is unfortunate. But let's just keep it up here, and since he's present, we are directed to a particular section. One that we would not have access to if there were not a sage in the party. Clearly, his knowledge and wisdom has paid off. Ironic that your quest should have brought you to a country called Wyrd, for it truly seems that you are now caught up in the grip of immutable destiny. You reflect on what you are because of the Wyrd, the Orlog. When it's spelled with a Y, it means something different. It means destiny, but not destiny in the way that we know it. We think of destiny as the destination, whereas the people who used the word Wyrd to refer to it meant the crucial moment in which a decision is made that will lead to a final destination. So they're thinking of the moment of decision as far more important than the outcome. Which is interesting. That moment where you have to make a choice and live with the results. You reflect on what you know of this strange kingdom. It is ruled by the Warlock King. That much is common knowledge from his Palace of Eternal Dusk. Craffian manuscripts you have looked at place the start of his reign between 4 and 6 centuries ago. From various sources you have heard that he has the power to enter the dreams of his subjects. He soon learns, therefore, if anyone has done anything to harm or oppose him, and he can even reach out to kill his enemies in their sleep. Presumably that power works only upon the natives of Wyrd. Outsiders like you should be immune. You hope. The social order of Wyrd is strictly regimented. There is a soldier caste, the Armigers. They must have lost their fighting edge somewhat by now, as the last historical reference to a war involving Wyrd dates back to the fall of Silentium. And the Warlock King's rule ensures that his realm is never shaken by internal squabbles, of course. The Solons are receivers of the law. They oversee the administration of the country, and instruct the people in the proper procedures of ceremony, for Wyrd is riddled with pomp and ritual pervading every aspect of daily life. The peasants form the mass of the population, a population probably in the region of only 1 or 2 million. Wyrd is not a land that could sustain a large society. The peasants must live in the most abject misery, worse even than the poverty of craft. The barren land resents their presence. From early dawn to long after dusk, they labour hard in the fields, pulling at hard roots that clog the soil. The seers are the only true caste not restrained by the weight of tradition. They wander where they will, sleeping in the wildwood or at a peasant's hearth, ignoring the laws that the Solons apply with such diligence to everyone else. It is not clear why the Warlock King should tolerate these curious figures, half prophet, half storyteller, who seem to make every effort to nurture a disrespect of his authority among the peasants. Possibly their dreams are beyond his power. You make your way inland, trekking north along the edge of a snow-clad valley. Far below you can see the soft flickering glow of light from a village, and we're gonna try for another 2-point healing roll. Again, those points are lost. This does not bode well. I can roll a 1 a third time. It just seems very unlikely. A plume of half-smoke rises in the cold night air, making the outline of fir trees on the other side of the valley shimmer. Involuntarily, you start to make your way down towards the village, the thought of warmth and comfort calling to you. Then another thought stops you dead in your tracks. Would the villagers welcome strangers from another land? We are out of food. We have no rations left. I think we should go to the village. I reckon we should risk it. Passing between the black boles of a few scattered trees, you descend into the valley and wade through snowdrifts to the promontory where the village is situated. Overlooking a frozen pond and stream, it consists of a single large wooden hall with a peaked roof of thatch. I'll do that whole sentence again. Overlooking a frozen pond and stream, it consists of a single wooden hall with a peaked roof of thatch, surrounded by 4 or 5 small stone huts that are presumably for storage. The smoke you saw is drifting up from a vent in the roof of the central building. You head towards it, shivering in a sudden, merciless gust of wind. Inside, a dog starts barking. That tells them you're here anyway, so you forget all notions of caution. You reach out and rap at the door, but not before making a 1-point healing roll. 4. You spend a point, get 2 points back. Yeah, better just go back up to 11 here. There's not much point healing the others just yet, as they're in better shape already. So, you reach out and rap on the door. It is opened and a lantern thrusts out towards you. You cannot see the man holding it because of the sudden glare in your face. You shield your eyes. Aromas waft warmly out of the smoky interior of the hall of stew, boiled meat, and potato spirit. Also the sweaty stench of men and animals. "What is it you want?" demands the man at the door. "Shelter, for one thing," you reply. As your vision becomes accustomed to the light, you can make out the details of his face. A balding, squint-eyed man, scrawny like a sick rooster. He looks old. In Wyrd, where a long life is rare and not a very desirable fate, that probably means he's about 25. "Who are you?" he says suspiciously. "You're not from Wyrd, I can see that." He pauses, then seems to make up his mind. He opens the door and steps back. Come in. "And be quick about it," snaps a toothless old man squatting by the fire. "Once the cold gets in, it'll only go out again with the spring." He cackles at his adage, then turns back to stare at the burning peat. The hall is full of people and animals, mostly pigs, chickens and dogs, though you notice 2 scraggy cows pressed against the far wall. The whole village and all of their livestock must cram into this building for the winter. Following the man with the lantern... Following the man with the lantern, you press between them to the hearth. The meat you smelled cooking turns out to be a chicken. When she sees you looking at it, a woman by the fireside glares and clangs the lid down on the pot. That comma is probably a full stop that's scanned in incorrectly. The man turns and invites you to sit on the rug beside him. He calls to a boy who scurries over with wooden bowls filled with hot gruel. The man pours mugs of fresh water for you as you eat, and tells you about the village. "My name is Shanhans, and I'm headman of this village. Normally we would not dare to take in strangers, but the snow has cut us off from the major roads. We should not be seeing any lawgivers around here for a month or 2. You take a swig of water. How does one get to the Palace of Eternal Dusk, you ask Shanhans. He looks right into your eyes for the space of heartbeats, then turns and calls out to a gaggle of people on the other side of the hearth. "Is the baby any better?" One of the group, a tall, lank-limbed girl of about 13, gets to her feet and saunters over. You study the rest of the group. Several women crouch over a cot, their faces drawn with worry. "No better," says the girl quietly to Shanhans. "He will not survive the night, I'm afraid." Shanhans shakes his head sorrowfully and looks at you. "Boiling water was spilt over the baby this morning. He is terribly scalded." His face falls to the floor. "Death will be a mercy." If there is a sage in the party who's willing to heal the child, absolutely. We don't have any potions or healing salves remaining, so we have to rely on Brother Kern's healing dice rolls, which have not been great this far. You go over and gently move the anxious woman aside so she can get a look at the baby. His skin is terribly raw and blistered, and he is too weak even to cry. In order to cure him, you must restore 1 endurance point, the equivalent of only a small flesh wound to you, but a grievous injury for a small baby. Attempt the healing in the usual way. If you manage to give him back 1 endurance point, if you cannot do... Right, so... The limit of 1 healing attempt per section is only introduced in the new reprinted versions of the books. I've been sticking to it for this playthrough so far. Let's go for a 1-point healing roll. That didn't work, so I'm going to try again. Sticking to the 1 point. Excellent. We give a point, we get a point back, we'll give it to the baby. Clearly, we are not supposed to be recovering the health we lost trekking across the ice before our encounter with the ice lacken. In fact, after the ice lacken, we have only succeeded 2 healing rolls, and that is brutal. You touch the baby's brow. So it's interesting, right? Because we were given, we can fail, right? But we weren't given a limit of 1 healing attempt. We were just told, yeah, look, if it don't work, it don't work. Now, the implication is that you only get the 1 attempt because it tells you pass or fail. But we do not have the chance. But we don't have the restriction at the moment. You touch the baby's brow and the scalded skin becomes firm and healthy once more. The women gasp in astonishment. The baby himself stares at you for a moment, then begins to cry loudly. His mother picks him up and begins to rock him gently, and he soon settles down to a contented gurgling. "A miracle!" cries one of the other women. "Are you one of the gods?" "Oh, hardly," you tell her, smiling. "In other lands, some mortals can do things that you obviously consider miraculous. Are there no magic users in Wyrd?" Everyone in the room lapses into silence. "Only the Warlock King," says one suddenly. "Only the Warlock King," says one sullenly. They all begin to chatter with one another, trying to dispel their sombre thought of the evil monarch. The baby's mother comes to you with tears filling her eyes. "I can never repay you for what you've done," she sobs. "I own nothing in this world but for a few rags and scraps. Take this old woolen cloak, please, and here is a jug of milk that I've got from the cow this afternoon. Apart from these meagre gifts, I can give you only my thanks and good wishes." Take note of the cloak and milk on your character sheet. You can drink the latter in place of 1 meal when the text says that you should eat. Now, do we have space for these? Yes, we do. I think Brother Kern will leave his nice new cloak behind and take this woolen cloak, because it might matter as a special item. As for the milk, I think we'll give it to Ariadne. We're low on supplies, and if any of us need to preserve our health, it's probably her at the moment. And since we're in a new section, let's try another 1-point healing roll. If we get up to double figures, we'll try for 2 points. Excellent. Spends a point, gets 4 points back. Well, I think he should give 3 of them to himself, taking up to 11. Remember, a point was spent. And then we'll give a point to Ariadne. There we go. "Now I know I was right to invite you in," says Shanhans with a smile as you rejoin him. "By the way, I don't think I introduced Uraba." You look at the lanky girl who is now sitting cross-legged beside you. She draws back the hood of her jerkin. Your surprise at her appearance does not go unnoticed. She smiles at Shanhans, who guffaws loudly. You had expected an ordinary teenage girl, perhaps unusually precocious at most, but she looks nothing like that. Her head is shaved completely except for a long ponytail of yellow hair. A band of white paint runs across her eyes, and in the middle of her forehead there is a tattoo in the shape of an open circle. The most curious feature of all, and perhaps the most disconcerting, is her extraordinarily tranquil and self-assured expression. "Uraba is a seer," explains Shanhan, still chuckling. "Uraba is a seer." "A seer? But Who would think? That is, Lady Uraba, you're very young. You're making yourself seem foolish. Some of the other villagers notice your embarrassment and also smile. I'm no great lady, says Uraba, grinning. I was born in a hut pretty much like this one, actually. No need for grand titles, just call me Uraba. You chat for several hours with Shanhans and Uraba. Most of the villagers seem reluctant to talk about the Warlock King. Even Shanhans, whom you can see now seems to be a fellow of strong moral fibre, shifts uneasily whenever you mention your quest. But Uraba the Seer is quite unlike the others. Irreverent and unafraid, she has her own names for the Warlock King. Old Dry Breath and Stifle Dreams, and her attitude towards him seems to be one of scorn, even pity rather than fear. At last it is time to go to sleep. Lie here by the fire, says a woman who you take to be Shanhan's wife. Since the seer is with us, the night will be free of bad dreams. You start to mull over her words as you settle down for the night. In the event your sleep is free of dreams of any sort, you wake in the morning invigorated and alert. Each wounded player regains endurance points up to half his or her rank, rounding up. Excellent, as we're rank 3, we'll get 2 points back. That'll put Remy on 16. Ariadne back on 15. If I'd read that far into the section, I probably wouldn't have given her that point of healing. Puts Brother Kern up to 13. And Sir Alwyn up to 16 as well. Excellent stuff. +1 endurance point for the nourishing pottage and garlic buns you're given for breakfast. I should have read the rest of the sentence, shouldn't I? So that puts Remy on 17. Brother Kern on 14. And Sir Alwyn on 17. We are grateful for this northern hospitality. It is time for you to be on your way. You thank Shanhans and the villagers for their hospitality and bid them farewell. There is no sign of Uraba. You step out into the cold morning air and slowly trudge through the snow away from the village. Don't be in such a hurry to leave. You turn at the sound of this clear young voice. Oh, clear, not slightly estuary. Okay, fine. Uraba is sitting on a snow-sprinkled woodpile nearby. She wears only her thin hooded jerkin, seeming not to feel the cold. You smile and walk over to where she is sitting. Thought you'd forgotten to say goodbye. No, she replies. But we have to talk about something that the others might not understand. Have this. She hands you a small sack. Opening it, you see an iron bell. Uraba laughs at your puzzled expression. To ring out the old and ring in the new, she declares, as though all is made clear by this cryptic mark. You're a seer? What does that mean exactly? She shrugs. I glimpse the future, perhaps. Maybe I just tell people what they already know. I can't really say for sure. You, for instance, I can see that you're not destined to kill the Warlock King. Oh, you may kill him or you may not, but you're not destined to. You have a greater destiny than that, and the Warlock King just happens to be an obstacle in your path. And what is this greater destiny exactly? You're asking a seer, to be exact. I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound cryptic and ever so wise, but the future just doesn't allow for certainty. Your destiny is to stop the first 5 last true magi from returning to legend. Red Death, Blue Moon, and those others. To do this, you need to reconstruct the Blade of Life, the weapon that people now know as the Blood Sword. The Warlock King has the hilt, and that's why you've come to Wyrd to kill him. Originally, perhaps, you say, nodding, But seeing the misery here, the way these people suffer, that's as good a reason to rid them of his evil. Good and evil are like the white and black counters in a game of checkers, says Araba. Long ago, a man, a visionary, used the power of imagination to transform Wyrd into a land of ease and pleasure. The people in those days didn't toil their way through short and miserable lives. All took their fill from the cornucopia. Time wore on without season or death. The land was a changeless thing, a paradise indeed, but a paradise is an inhuman place. Man cannot endure heaven any more than he can hell. So what happened, you asked, then when you realised she's not going to say any more? This. Dreams have become sere and sour, the land choked by endless grey. The Warlock King has closed himself off from the fount of existence, and his heart has become dull and hard. He holds Wyrd in a withered grip like a dead flower pressed in a book. And you say he's not evil? She sighs and gazes bleakly to the north. Forget good and evil. Just destroy him if you can. She looks back at you. I can look into the future for you just one peek. I already know that to reach the palace you must pass through the forest of thorns. The elves will try to stop you, and in order to get past you must either fight them or beat their leader at a game of checkers. In the forest you will be pursued by the frost hounds. They are the Warlock King's outer line of defence, the first elements of his dream magic to become aware of you. Beyond the forest of thorns you'll come to the palace, a dangerous journey but not a long one. The palace is located in a twilit world of dreams where earthly geography means nothing. But before you can enter, you will have to face Griston, a monstrous ghoul who guards the free palace gates. Now I can answer one question for you. Which will it be? How can the elf lord be beaten at checkers? How may the frost hounds be avoided? Or what is the best way to get into the palace? Okay. If we can beat the Elven Lord at a game of checkers, and we have a board and pieces, then we won't have to fight him and his Elven warriors. How may the frost hounds be avoided? Well, we can face that problem when we come to it, or we can... we may even just be able to fight them. What is the best way to get into the palace? If a monstrous ghoul guards the free palace gates, maybe the elves will tell us how. Alright, yeah, let's... First things first, then. Well, how can the elf lord be beaten at checkers? And why is that such a thing that we need to ask? Let's find out. I am intrigued. A wise decision, she says. You deal with your problems in the order they arise. She squints into the distance, seeming to look at the ridge of snow-covered pines, but focusing, in fact, on the events that lie in your future. This is not easy, she announces at last. The elves will use any means to win, even casting illusions over the playing pieces to make you think you have lost. The best solution is this. Advance your pieces across the board in a regular formation. The elves cannot easily use their illusion magic then, as you would notice at once if they made any of your pieces seem to be where it was not. You thank Araba for her help and bid her farewell. Make sure you made note of the iron bell she gave you, and make a 2-point healing roll because Brother Kern is still injured. We spend 2 points, we get 6 points back. So that's 4 points after recovering to him. 1 will put him on full. And 1 for the warrior and trickster. And the final point, yeah. 2, yep. Final point is wasted, but we're all healthy again. Excellent. And this iron bell, who should carry it? This feels like a magical item. We don't want to give away our jug of milk though, so Remy's inventory is full, Ariadne's inventory is full. Everyone's apart from Sir Alwyn, who does have space. Excellent. And now he only has one empty slot. Oof, okay. You head north, under a sky laden with snow. Wherever you can, you walk in the shelter of pine trees, for the Arctic wind whistles around you and stings your skin. Each exhalation freezes into crystals of ice, a fine white flurry of snow dust on the breeze. Snow is falling thickly by mid-afternoon. When you approach a forest... Snow is falling thickly by mid-afternoon when you approach a forest of tangled black thorns. A path of sorts lies through the briars ahead of you, but as you trudge towards it, a group of tall figures dressed in grey and green emerges. They carry longbows and slim silver swords. The leader of these elves steps forwards to face you, meeting your defiant gaze with his cold green eyes. Then he speaks. Now wild weather of the world awakes throughout this land. Clouds cast keenly their cold gaze upon the earth, with great gusts from the north to shiver the flesh. The blizzard bears down upon all living things. The whistling wind whips from the fells, filling every dale full of deep drifts. He pauses, still holding you in the soulless scrutiny of his pale eyes. The way ahead is ours, and the toll we exact is mortal blood. We shall deny you these woods. Avaunt! Follow your own tracks back through the snow. You shall not pass. Typical elf. Says everything 3 times over. You stare back at him and consider your next move. We could fight him, or suggest a game of Crafty and checkers. We got the pieces on the board, let's go for it. Do you have a board and pieces for checkers? Yes. Brother Kern has been carrying them for a long time. Excellent. The Elf Lord is tempted by your suggestion. Like most creatures of fairy, elves are fascinated by games and conundrums. The other elves lower their bows and peer at the board as you quickly set up the pieces. The Elf Lord sits down in the snow and turns the board. Yours shall be the black pieces, he says. I take the white. You grunt non-committally. Choice of colour is his prerogative, as the challenged player after all. He waits for you to sit opposite him, then makes his first move. Decide who is playing against him. If it is a trickster who wishes to try cheating, that is an option. Otherwise we could play a game fairly, and only the trickster has the chance to cheat. I think it is Brother Kern who should play. As the educated sage, he's likely to know the best tactics and strategies for this game. Especially as he was able to analyse the game being played earlier and tell that the werewolves weren't playing a game, they were doing something else. You must decide what strategy to use against the elf, bearing in mind that as a soulless creature, he is likely to be a methodical but uninspired games player. We could use our central playing pieces as a wedge to penetrate his defences. We could decide to advance it across the board in a regular formation. We could employ the bluff of pulling back our central pieces and then closing the outer ones behind him as he attacks. Or we could try making an occasional random move in order to throw him off. But Uraba the Seer instructed us to advance in a regular formation because he will be trying to use trickery and illusion to make our pieces seem like they're in different squares and that we've already lost. So regular formation it is. The Elf Lord gradually becomes anxious and indecisive. He seems completely at a loss to know how to deal with your tactics. At last, when the outer edge of your carefully constructed formation reaches his pieces, he concedes defeat. Gathering up the pieces, he lowers his proud gaze and speaks quietly, saying, "You set the test, this game, and I am truly overthrown. No grudge shall hold me from fulfilling my troth, though I am less certain you would have held to your pledge." "That's an unmanly remark to make," you cry. "You have lost fair and square. Is that any reason to cast base aspersions on the decency of others?" He turns his chill gaze on you again. "My words were spoken in ill-considered haste, and now I must make reparations. I shall give you a gift as recompense for the slight my tongue offered you." He pronounces a few syllables in a language you do not recognize, and the checker's pieces glitter with green light. "These playing pieces now have my rune laid upon them. When you contend against the final foe, this sorcery of mine shall aid you. At that time, the harm you were dealt by my harsh words shall be undone." You take the enchanted pieces from him, noting that as you do so, his touch is deathly cold. With an uneasy glance at the waiting elven warriors, you pass beyond them down the forest road. I do not think we shall need the board again, however, we have enchanted checkers pieces. Elven magic. In our possession. It is night. The sky pitch black, but the snow seems to hold a faint luminescence of its own. That is true. It reflects starlight and moonlight quite admirably. But there are no moon and stars in the sky. The tangled thorn bushes higher than your head form a web of blackness against the backdrop of white, just like the checkers board that we have just been playing on. Your boots crunch on the powdery snow. The wind has dropped now, making the awesome cold slightly more bearable. You begin to consider making camp for the night. Then a soft sound reaches your ears. A crisp pad, 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 stealthy footfalls crunching in the snow. We could stop here and make camp. Probably not wise if the thing approaching us is trying to be quiet. Or we could decide not to stop just yet. Let's carry on. As clearly, we are not out of the woods just yet. We are not safe. You feel your hackles rise. Something is definitely following you. You can hear its rasping breath. No, several breaths. An eager panting, a pack of hunting dogs. You look back and catch a glimpse of them loping swiftly and stealthily through the black thickets of thorns. They are frost hounds, naked flanks blue with cold, eyes like hoarfrost and fangs that are jagged black icicles. You quicken your pace. So do they. You start to run. Ooh. I'd say it's all hotting up, but that would be rather inappropriate language right now. The frost hounds stay hard on your heels. You can feel their freezing breath on your back. Hear the relentless crunch of their racing paws in the snow. More come to join the pack, hearing the hideous howls of their brethren. Your legs begin to tire and your breath comes in short gasps. You dash madly along the path. Up ahead it divides into two. In one glance you can take in the details. The right-hand branch continues as far as you can see, but the left-hand branch leads to a cave from which the light of a fire shines invitingly. The cave could provide shelter and safety, or a dead end from which there will be no escape. Normal nor magic dogs won't go near a strange fire very often unless they're well trained. We could bottleneck them. Okay, we can face these hounds when we're exhausted and when they're dogs. They're faster than us. They could catch us if they wanted to. They're tiring us out. When they do exhaust us and we turn to face them, we'll be surrounded. If we go in a cave, the entrance may be wide enough for many of them to enter, but it's still narrow enough that they'll be mostly coming from one direction to begin with. So it is into the cave that we shall go. Look, if we keep running, the situation doesn't change. We go into a cave, the situation changes. A fur rug hangs over the narrow mouth of the cave, allowing only a chink of light to escape. The light lies like a bright spear across the snow, pointing your way to safety. At least the light and the narrow gap into the cave will give you some slight advantage against the diabolic hounds. All such thoughts vanish as you dive through the cave entrance. Beyond the draped fur you behold a dazzling sight. There is a huge hearth where a pot of stew bubbles enticingly over a crackling log fire. You smell roast meat, and golden light glimmers on bottles of wine and mead. Your flesh, flayed by cold outside, now tingles as the warmth returns to it. A woman is sitting in a chair by the fire. She looks up with a welcoming smile, and the firelight causes her eyes to twinkle. "Hello," she says. "Do come in." You hold up your hand, warning her to stay quiet, and edge back to the cave entrance. You hear nothing outside. Your thoughts conjure an image of the hounds waiting in sinister silence, banding at the cave mouth. But when you flip back the fur and look out, you see only the snow slowly drifting snowflakes, and the stillness of the thorn forest. "The wolves, or hounds, or whatever," says the woman, "won't come in here. I don't think they like the warmth." They are frost hounds after all. "Who are you?" you ask, allowing her to lead you to the fireside. Your normal instinct is always to be suspicious, but you are too tired and cold really to keep your guard up now. You fall ravenously on the food and drink she hands to you. "It's time to sleep," she says gently. Though old, she is a handsome woman. You find her words comforting, and they gradually lull you into slumber. You feel her old brown hands pulling a blanket across you. It seems for a moment that you see her face looking down at you. She looks younger now, her face radiant and full of dignity and wisdom. Her gown of white samite glows in the golden firelight. The fortune teller at the beginning of the quest told us an old man would oppose us, and that a woman would be our ally. In case we thought it was the girl, we may be mistaken, unless they are one and the same, which is also a possibility. If all the seers are actually the same person, moving around the kingdom, that again is interesting. You wake with a start. The woman has gone. You're not sure how long you slept, but you feel completely restored. If wounded, you can return your endurance to its normal score. So if we had been able to beat the Ice Lacken and were heavily wounded, by now we should be at full health. And the only time we've really had to risk health loss was a healing roll for a wounded child. With spirits bolstered by some soothing rest, you gather your belongings and set off. Among them, you find that the woman has left you a gift, an amber tinderbox. Note this on your character sheet if you wish to keep it. Well, that sounds like a nice magic item that Ariadne should have. So, we're going to let her carry the amber tinderbox and give the jug of milk to Sir Alwyn. There we go. Amber is a precious material and a very unusual one to create a tinderbox from. Normally it would be made from wood or a bit of metal. You emerge from the cave. You would have thought it would be dawn by now, but the forest is suffused in a grey gloom that gives no clues as to the time. The thorns look ragged and evil in the twilight, and you regretfully make your way from the cave and follow the path north. The cursed forest seems to stretch on without limit. Bristling briars hang all around, resembling the poisoned black knives of 1,000 skulking assassins. The snow has a stark grin. The wind stings you with its merciless stroking. The sky is the colour of lead. You lose all sense of the passage of time. You cannot tell if you have been travelling for hours or for days. You are walking as in a dream, weary and only half conscious of your changeless surroundings. Suddenly you become aware that you have left the forest of thorns behind you. You are walking across a barren moor sprinkled with snow towards a wide lake ringed by strange hunched crags. The water glistens in the dreary twilight. Looking back, you see the edge of the swarthy, thorny forest you have traversed. Your journey through it seems faintly unreal now, like a dream looked back upon after waking, or like the waking world glimpsed in dreams. Your gaze drops to the snow behind you. It is unblemished, showing no signs of tracks leading from the forest edge. You leave no footprints where you walk. The Palace of Eternal Dusk now stands ahead of you, a brooding grey edifice of heavy arches and squat towers, built on an island in the middle of the lake. 3 huge covered bridges, doubtless honeycombed with chambers and corridors, stretch out from the central keep across the gelid water. Each bridge is entered by a gate on the lake shore. You know before you reach them that these are the gates of confusion, of carnage, and of fear. A roar rocks the ground beneath your feet. Shambling from behind a crag comes a giant beast, a thing that walks on its hind legs like a man. Each scaly plate armouring its body is the size of a knight's shield. Each hard-horny claw is thick as a spear's shaft. Where it places its feet, the snow melts, and the scant grass is left withered and scorched. It is Griston, the guardian beast that patrols the ways into the Warlock King's fortress. This guardian beast looks like a formidable foe. So, before entering combat, Ariadne should absolutely prepare a spell. And what spell should she prepare, I wonder? Let's see. We've got a foe with a fighting prowess of 8. 3 dice plus 1 damage. an armor rating of 3 and 60 endurance points. This is going to be a very challenging fight. We do have the option to flee. Now, interesting. So under the old rules, every player would flee to the exit in round 1. The monster would then move up and attack one person, then we could leave. With the new movement, so if we put Remy here, he could run away before the monster could target everyone. Then the heroes would flee at the same time as the monster would attack one. Under the new rules of the limited movement, it's going to be harder to get around this thing, which means Ariadne should prepare the spell of immediate deliverance. Is that what it's called? Immediate deliverance, complexity level 2. Okay. And even so, the beast may kill us. Oof. Alright. Well, I need to go make a battle map, but also looking at the time and the fact that I got stuff I need to do early tomorrow morning, it's probably best if I actually end the episode here on a mighty cliffhanger. It would be nice to do the fight and then end the episode if we're trying to flee. But I sense it'll take me a bit of a while to find some nice artwork for this monster anyway. So yeah, I'm going to leave this one here. I hope you've all liked this episode, in which I only needed to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dice rolls. And in fact, I only really needed to make one of those. Well, 2, because of that nasty failure. And if you did like this one, I'll look forward to seeing you all in the very next episode. I'll say goodbye for now, though, and cheerio, everyone. See you all soon, probably with far more dice rolls in the next episode.